On a bright July morning in the kind of small American town where neighbors still wave from porches and kids leave scooters in driveways without fear, the sun was already shining with overly enthusiastic confidence. Heat shimmered off the asphalt like it was trying to audition for a desert movie role, and cicadas chirped at decibels typically reserved for lawnmowers. It was the sort of day where sunscreen felt like a moral obligation, and iced tea was practically a civic duty. And right in the middle of Maplewood Street, an ordinary suburban block filled with ranch houses, hydrangea bushes, and pickup trucks that had seen better decades, stood Evan Parker, staring at his car like it had personally betrayed him. Evan was 32, the type of guy who wore cargo shorts year-round because of the utility, and owned a collection of graphic tees that would embarrass most adults but delighted children. Today's shirt featured a cartoon donut flexing its muscles with the caption, "Don't Stop Believin'." His hair, a light brown fluff that always stuck up a little in the back, was damp from the humidity. His iced coffee from the corner shop, Cora's Brewhouse, owned by the beloved Cora Lane, was sweating as badly as he was. He sipped it, sighed, and stared at his car again. Locked. Keys inside. Phone inside. Dignity on the line. It had all happened in under 10 seconds. A blur of clumsiness so specifically choreographed by fate that even a sitcom writer would reject it for being too convenient. Evan had put the iced coffee on the roof to adjust his backpack, then reached inside the car to grab a folder for his morning volunteer meeting at the town recreation center. A gust of wind slammed the door shut. And like a slow-motion action scene without the action, Evan watched the automatic locks click down. He blinked at the door. He tapped the window, as if it might reconsider. It didn't. Across the street, Linda Howard, a retired librarian with sharp eyes and a sharper sense of humor, watched from her porch where she was watering her hanging petunias. Linda had known Evan since he was a teenager delivering newspapers on a bike that squeaked like a distressed hamster. She lifted her sunglasses. "Let me guess," she called out. "Locked out again?" "Not again," Evan said defensively. "Just happening." Linda shook her head. "Fourth time this summer. You're keeping AAA in business." "I like to think of it as stimulating the economy." "It's not stimulating anything," Linda said. "Except my morning entertainment." Before Evan could respond, Miguel Alvarez, a high school-age kid with a skateboard tucked under his arm, rolled up. Miguel was wearing a faded tank top, basketball shorts, and the kind of confidence only someone with no car payments and no back pain could possess. "Dude," he said, squinting at the locked car. "Did you forget your keys again?" "Technically," Evan said, "I didn't forget them. They forgot me." Miguel laughed. Classic Evan. Linda leaned on her porch railing. "Honey, at this point you should just carry a spare key around your neck like a middle school locker pass." Evan was about to defend his honor again when another voice chimed in, Cora Lane, the owner of the coffee shop and everyone's unofficial life coach. She walked toward them carrying a brown paper bag filled with fresh cinnamon roll samples she'd been offering customers. Cora was in her mid-40s, wore jeans, a yellow tank top, and a floral headband. She had a perpetual warm energy that made people confess problems they swore they'd keep private. "Trouble?" she asked, handing Evan a cinnamon roll like he needed comfort food more than rescue. "Locked out," Miguel answered. Again, Linda clarified. Cora smiled sympathetically. "Well, look at it this way, life gives you obstacles so you learn inventiveness." Evan took a large bite of the cinnamon roll. "I'm inventive," he said, crumbs falling everywhere. Linda raised an eyebrow. "You once tried to use a spatula as a snow scraper." "It worked," Evan protested. "For the top half of the windshield. Then snapped in half because it was plastic," Linda said. Cora clapped her hands lightly. "Okay, let's brainstorm solutions. We have a whole town's worth of creativity here." Miguel lifted his skateboard. "We could break a window." "No," Evan said immediately. "That is the opposite of helpful." "It would get you in," Miguel said. Linda shook her head. "Kids." Miguel shrugged. "Worth a try." Cora pointed at the car. "Does it have a keypad? A hidden button? A spare magnetic key under the bumper?" Evan swallowed his bite. "No keypad. And I tried the bumper trick years ago. The key fell off in the car wash." "That tracks," Linda muttered. Then, from further down the street, came the thunderous sound of footsteps, Gary Bennett, the local handyman legend, jogging toward them. Gary was in his late 50s, built like a retired football player, and wore a sweat-stained baseball cap and a tool belt that could probably fix an airplane. He waved. "Morning, folks," he said. "Saw y'all standing around looking confused. Figured it was either an emergency or Evan locked himself out again." "Emergency," Evan said. Linda countered. Lockout again. Gary studied the car, circled it once like a doctor evaluating symptoms, and ended on a dramatic nod. I can fix this, he said confidently. Thank you, Evan said with relief. Gary held up a finger. But, I can only fix it if you let me try something weird. Linda groaned. Lord save us. Miguel leaned forward, excited. Weird how? Gary rummaged in his tool belt and pulled out a wire hanger. Oh boy, Cora whispered. It's an old school trick, Gary said. Used to do it all the time back in the 90s. Was that before or after you got arrested that one time for accidentally helping a burglar open his own stolen car? Linda asked. That was a misunderstanding, Gary said. He bent the hanger dramatically like he was folding origami. Then he slid it slowly into the window gap, only for it to immediately fall apart. Gary sighed. They don't make hangers like they used to. Cora patted his shoulder. It's okay. We appreciate the effort. Miguel suggested using his skateboard somehow. Linda suggested calling AAA. Cora suggested meditation while they waited. Gary suggested brute force. Evan rejected all these ideas. He paced back and forth, taking sips of his melting iced coffee. There has to be a solution. Something clever, something creative. Creative in emergencies, Linda said. You once tried to open child-proof packaging with a chainsaw. That was a single time, Evan said. A terrifying time, Cora added. But then, from down the street, a car turned the corner, music thumping, windows open, and inside sat Harper Collins, the town's young, energetic prop designer for the community theater. Harper was in her late 20s, wore cut-off jeans, a band tee, and her car was filled with glittery cardboard stars and fake swords. She slowed down, curious. Why does this look like a city council meeting being held around a car? Evan locked himself out, Miguel explained. Again, Linda said. Harper parked, hopped out, and popped her trunk. Say no more. What are you doing? Evan asked nervously. Something magical, Harper said, pulling out a long wooden pole topped with a padded foam hook. A prop shepherd's crook from last year's Christmas play. Is that legal? Evan asked. Probably not, Harper said cheerfully. But it'll work. Evan's face twisted. What do you mean, probably? Harper positioned herself next to the car window and angled the hook downward, trying to catch the door lock. She stuck her tongue out slightly, her concentration face, and everyone watched in silence. She jerked, wiggled, readjusted. Missed. Tried again. Missed. Linda whispered, I give her credit, that is the most dramatic way to fail I've ever seen. But on the fourth attempt, click. The lock flipped upward. Harper gasped. I did it. Miguel high-fived her. Cora clapped. Gary fist pumped the air. Even Linda cracked a smile. Evan stared in disbelief. You actually opened it, with Christmas props. See, Harper said proudly. Community theater saves the day again. Evan opened the door, grabbed his keys, and lifted them triumphantly like they were sacred artifacts. Thank you, all of you. I don't know how to repay this. Linda called out. Start by never locking yourself out again. Gary slapped Evan on the back. Or get a keyless entry system. It's 2020-something. Cars should open with wishes by now. Cora passed around more cinnamon roll samples as celebration snacks, and the neighborhood slowly drifted back to their morning routines. Miguel skated off, Gary jogged home, Harper drove away trailing glitter like a rogue unicorn, and Linda returned to watering her flowers. Evan stood by his now unlocked car, overwhelmed by the comedy, kindness, and chaos that had just unfolded. The morning heat pressed on his shoulders, but something else warmed him too, that weird, proud feeling when a community shows up for you, even when you cause your own disasters. He sat in the driver's seat, finally safe, finally relieved, until he realized something horrifying. He had placed his iced coffee on the roof at the start of the chaos. He looked up. The cup was still there, perfectly balanced. Mocking him. He reached up, grabbed it, and whispered, You survived better than I did. Evan drove off toward the recreation center, not knowing that this chaotic lockout would kickstart a chain of events that would teach him far more about creativity, teamwork, and unexpected friendships than any summer adventure he'd had since childhood. Because today wasn't over. Not even close. The sun had climbed even higher now, melting the air into a shimmering curtain as Evan drove toward Maplewood Recreation Center, the place where half the town held meetings, events, disagreements, bake sales, and occasionally, interpretive dancing lessons led by people who had no business interpreting anything. The morning lockout fiasco still pulsed in his mind like a movie replaying itself. He laughed at one moment, cringed at another, and groaned at the memory of Gary's hanger snapping like a cheap cracker. But the more Evan thought about it, the more he realized something. Everyone had shown up. Linda, Miguel, Cora, Gary, Harper, they'd all appeared without hesitation. No planning, no asking. Just instinctive small-town teamwork. It warmed him more than the sun did, and the sun was doing a very aggressive job. He pulled into the rec center lot, grabbed his iced coffee which had somehow survived the drive and his bad braking, and walked toward the entrance. The building was an older brick structure with a faded mural of children playing baseball. Inside, the AC was blasting as if trying to win a war against summer itself. Evan was supposed to help set up for the community workshop, a summer program for kids learning creative problem solving. Ironically, he'd just experienced an entire crash course that morning. Inside, Janice Peters, the rec center director, was already in full panic mode. Janice was in her early 50s, wore denim capris, a peach blouse, and a lanyard of keys that jingled like a tiny orchestra whenever she moved. She was a natural organizer, except when she wasn't. "Oh, Evan, thank goodness," she said, rushing over. "We have a situation. Please tell me the building isn't locked, because I've reached my lock-related quota for the day." Janice blinked. "What? Never mind. What's wrong?" "The workshop supplies didn't arrive. We have kids coming in 20 minutes expecting puzzles, building blocks, scavenger maps, the whole creativity module. And all we have are coloring pages left over from last Christmas." "So," Evan said, "this is bad. This is catastrophic," Janice replied. At that exact moment, kids started trickling into the center, backpacks bouncing, energy overflowing, voices echoing like excited birds. Parents chatted in the hallway. The pressure was rising. Evan rubbed his forehead. "Okay, we need a solution, a weird one, and I think I know exactly who can help." Evan pulled out his phone and texted, "Emergency. Need creativity team at rec center ASAP. Trust me." He hit send to Harper, Cora, Gary, Miguel. Linda, who did not have emojis and once complained that smiley faces looked smug. 5 minutes later, the Maplewood Chaos crew burst in like a ragtag superhero squad. Harper arrived first, carrying a bin full of old props, fake gems, cardboard shields, foam crowns, and a fake treasure chest. "Did someone say emergency? I brought imagination." Gary followed with a toolbox large enough to renovate a kitchen. "Somebody said supplies. I got supplies." Miguel skated in, earning a glare from Janice. "Creative problem solving, that's pretty much my personal brand." Cora walked in with muffins, because she never arrived anywhere without snacks. "Let's fix the world, people." Linda entered last, muttering, "If this turns into another fiasco like the squirrel rescue incident, I'm blaming Evan." Janice stared at them all. "Who are these people?" Evan smiled. "Maplewood's finest." Within seconds, the improvised brainstorming session began. Tables scattered, chairs pulled into circles, kids peeking in curiously. Harper pointed at her prop bin. "We can turn this into a creativity quest. A scavenger adventure using theater props." Gary opened his toolbox. "And I can whip up mini puzzle stations with scrap wood." Kids love gadgets. Miguel suggested, "We could set up obstacle courses in the gym." Cora added, "And afterward, a teamwork-themed snack table." Janice blinked. "You can do all that in 15 minutes. Gary cracked his knuckles like a man about to fix a spaceship. "Watch us." The next 15 minutes were pure, beautiful chaos, the kind powered only by caffeine, adrenaline, and unregulated enthusiasm. Harper transformed the prop bin into a quest for the golden ideas game. Gary quickly built small contraptions that required kids to use physics to retrieve hidden items. Miguel taped arrows on the floor to lead kids through a maze-like route. He labeled it Operation Brain Maze. Cora set up tables of colorful snacks to represent reward checkpoints. Evan crafted story cards introducing challenges like The Puzzle of the Lost Bridge and The Riddle of the Windy Valley, using printer paper and pure desperation. Linda supervised with the stern authority of someone who'd once shushed an entire high school during a pep rally. When the kids finally came in, the energy skyrocketed. They ran through obstacle courses, solved riddles, operated Gary's goofy wooden machines, tried on Harper's glittery crowns, and snacked on Cora's blueberry muffins. Evan narrated parts of the quest like a dramatic movie trailer voice. Will they find the hidden clue? Will they solve the ancient riddle? Will Gary's machine hold together long enough? Kids were laughing. Parents were smiling. Janice looked teary-eyed from relief. And Evan, watching the whole organized whirlwind, realized something important. Problems weren't disasters. They were invitations to collaborate, to be resourceful, to be community. Everything that morning, the lockout, the chaos, the kindness, had prepared him perfectly for this moment. He glanced at his "Don't Stop Believin'" shirt. Maybe the donut was onto something. After the workshop wrapped up and the last kid left wearing a glittery cardboard crown, the group gathered near the exit. Janice clasped her hands. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved the entire program." Gary grinned. "That's what we do." Linda elbowed him. "Oh hush. We do nothing. She pointed to Evan, started this." Evan looked around at the people who had helped him through 2 crises before noon. "Actually," he said, "you all did. And today taught me something. You can unlock more than a car. You can unlock creativity, teamwork, support, and maybe even a little confidence." Miguel fist bumped him. "Bro, that was deep." Cora added warmly, "Sometimes the world locks us out so we can find new ways back in." Harper lifted her phone crook. "And sometimes it just means you need a ridiculous prop." Everyone laughed. The heat outside had mellowed into a gentle golden glaze, the afternoon sun painting long shadows across the parking lot. Evan walked to his car, keys in hand, and paused. He didn't rush. He didn't fumble. He didn't panic. He simply unlocked the door. Smoothly. On purpose. Like a man who had learned something. He smiled and turned back to the group. "Lunch on me tomorrow, my treat." Cora beamed. "We'll be there." Linda shouted from her porch down the street later that evening as Evan passed by, "Don't lock yourself out on the way home." Evan lifted his keys overhead. "Not today." And as the summer cicadas hummed their warm, lazy chorus and Maplewood Street glowed in the setting sun, Evan felt lighter, like something inside him had finally clicked open. Sometimes life locks the door. Sometimes it hides the keys. But with the right people, you always find another way in.
Like and subscribe if you want daily dose of happiness and motivation.